The story begins when our main protagonist Kufa Vampir, an assassin in the employ of the Guild White Knight, clashes with a mysterious bandaged assailant who escapes soon after. He finds that his contact Lord Elsnes is dead. He offers to follow him, but his boss, referred to as father, tells him not to. He travels by train and observes the place he lives in called Flandor, humanity's last surviving city-state made up of several glass domes called canbells, connected to each other by several glass tubes. On the outside, the lycanthropes, which are monsters of the night, roam the darkness. He disembarks and meets a pink-haired girl whom he escorts out of the train. He then goes to the Angel Estate, where he is to work for the next 3 years as a private instructor to a young girl called Melida. He accompanies her to her school, Friedeswood's Academy, where she is mocked by another student called Nerva for not having any mana, which gifts its users with physical and magical abilities. After Nerva defeats her in a sparring match, she reveals to the others that Melida's dream is to join Crest Legion, the strongest guild in Flandor, and she is ridiculed once more. Kufa observes that though Melida is talented, her lack of mana holds her back, so her dream will remain a dream. Kufa was hired by Lord Mordru, who is Melida's grandfather, to investigate her true heritage, as they suspected that her mother had an affair with Lord Elsnes, who is now dead. Observing that she has no mana whatsoever, he concludes that she is indeed an illegitimate child and prepares to assassinate her, even though he pities her. However, when he goes to her room, he finds that she is missing. Melida is attacked by several pumpkinhead lycanthropes, which she struggles to fend off. Kufa catches up but hides in secret, suspecting that the pumpkinheads were deliberately lured into the city by Mordru so that Melida's mana would awaken forcibly. Impressed by her pride and spirit, he rescues her from the lycanthropes and proposes a way to awaken her mana, but warns it may kill her. She agrees to his idea despite the risk, so Kufa drinks a potion and administers it to her via a kiss. She writhes in pain and collapses, but awakens with a newfound ability to use mana. They then return home, and as she celebrates with her maids, Kufa now faces the daunting task of preventing her illegitimacy from ever coming to light and hiding his involvement with Mordru and the White Knight, in fear that they'd both be executed. Kufa is concerned with Melida's physical condition, especially more so when he discovers that her awakened class is not a paladin as is the norm in her family, but a samurai like his. He asks her to keep both the circumstances of her awakening and her class a secret, even from her classmates. She is once again bullied at school by Nerva and her friends, and Kufa asks her to endure it. They then run into the girl whom Kufa had escorted out of the train station, who turns out to be the famed Roasty Prickett, a commoner who rose through the ranks to be part of Crest Legion. She explains she has been hired to be Elise's tutor, but when she tries to get friendly with him, he dismisses her, calling her callous and improper, which he views to be a bad influence on Melida. She becomes annoyed and says that Elise will dominate the upcoming tournament. Sometime later, after going through secret training, the day of the tournament arrives. Melida's team first faces off against Nerva's, and as planned, she alongside everyone else are shocked when Melida uses mana. Although she initially dominated Nerva, she suddenly loses her mana for a few seconds, allowing Nerva to mount a counterattack. She shatters Melida's sword, but at the last second Melida unleashes a wind slash using her remaining shard, which startles Kufa as he had only ever used that move once. Melida then leads the team to a victory, but her father Felgus later tells her not to get excited over one little victory. Nerva approaches her after their match and returns a book she had snatched away before. Meanwhile, Elise's match ended in a matter of seconds, showing off just how powerful the paladin class is. Melida shows off a dress to Kufa and says that every year, herself, Elise, and several other girls at the academy wear it during a festival parade. She is looking forward to attending and invites Kufa to dance with her during the campfire event. He regretfully turns her down as he has a prior engagement, but promises to go on the final night. Melida is disappointed to see Elise wearing a dress that her family forced her to wear, as Elise's maid called Othello found it unacceptable for Elise to wear a rag. Elise is scorned by the other girls in hushed whispers. Unable to take it anymore, she runs away, and Melida chases after her to a nearby fountain where she finds her crying. As she moves to comfort her, they are suddenly captured by several pumpkinheads and the mysterious bandaged man, who we discover is named Jin. The two girls awaken inside a museum, their mana restricted by Jin's bandages. He tells Melida that he was ordered to forcibly remove the paladin mana from Elise and implant it onto her. Melissa and Elise attempt to escape, defeating some pumpkinheads in the process, but as they approach the emergency exit, Jin blocks their path. Recognizing the possible threat the two may pose in the future, he decides to kill them instead, but they are saved by the timely arrival of Kufa and Roasty, who make short work of the pumpkinheads. Kufa chases Jin into the man atrium, where he summons the trump card of his group, Grimface, a man-made lycanthrope and chimera. Kufa loses an arm in the process, but he manages to defeat the chimera, frightening Jin. When Jin sees Kufa's hair glow white and reattach his severed arm, he realizes that Kufa is the strongest type of lycanthrope, a vampire. Kufa decides to let Jin live on the condition that he feed his client false information that Melida has paladin mana to ward off any attacks in the future. That night, Kufa dances with Melida as promised as fireworks go off in the moonlight. Meanwhile, the boss of White Knight instructs Black Media to investigate Kufa, who they suspect has gone rogue. The students of Friediswood's Academy gather for the Luna Lumiere, an annual week-long competition held against their sister school, Dotrich. 2 representatives known as cadets are chosen to battle it out in a trial which will be held on the final day. Most of the student body expect their president, Christo or Shenfa, who claimed the title of queen the previous year. However, they are shocked when the selection glass names Elise and Melida as cadets, causing many to grumble that they must have cheated their way through. They will each lead unit, and when Melida is asked to choose her 2 partners, she tenses up. Noticing her freeze up, Nerva and Shenfa raise their hands to volunteer. Elise picks her own teammates while the Dotrich cadets, called Kara and Salacha, pick their own. They begin training, and shortly after Kufa criticizes Melida's slow sword draw speed, they take a break. While resting underneath a tree, Melida is visited by Mule Amour, a student from Dotrich who is interested in the famous and competent talent. She encourages her and leaves. That night, Kufa catches Othello trying to dispose of evidence of rigging the selection glass. She admits that she did it, but it was so that people would see Elise as superior over the main family. Melida poses a challenge to Othello. If she beats Elise at the upcoming match, then Othello should allow her and Elise to form a team together. Later, Kufa meets Black Media, who says that Kufa's loyalty has come under scrutiny. When she demands to test Melida's blood, Kufa refuses and the 2 begin to fight. Rosie soon arrives, but she is confused at Black Media's fighting style, who can seemingly draw upon the powers of several classes at will. When the school's security team draws near, Black Media escapes but warns Kufa that she will always be right behind him. Kufa explains to Rosie that Black Media's class allows her to emulate any of the lower classes. She is renowned as the strongest joker in Flandor. Meanwhile, Elise visits Melida and proposes that she throws the match on purpose. Kufa and Rosie warns the head of Friediswood's Academy to suspend the Luna Lumiere due to the threat that Black Media poses, but she refuses. In the days leading up to the battle, Melida and Elise's relationship remains strained, although Nerva and Shenfa do their best to cheer Melida up and to discuss their battle plan. The days pass by quickly as all the units train hard in preparation. The night before the battle, Kufa asks Melida what has been bothering her, and she explains that Elise offered to throw the match, which she finds out of character for her. The battle royale between the 4 units begins, and Kufa finds a suspicious girl atop a watchtower and attacks her, suspecting she is Black Media, but he realizes his error when the girl introduces herself as Mule Amour, a Dotrich student hailing from one of the 3 great houses, bearing the Diablos class. He apologizes for his actions and realizes that Black Media is inside the tournament grounds. While Nerva and Shenfa deal with their counterparts, Elise and Melida do battle in a separate hall. Melida asks Elise why she is so quiet, and she replies it is because Melida is weaker than her, and all she ever wanted was to be in her shadow, not the spotlight. Melida perfects her feather slash, destroying Elise's greatsword. She says that now and always, she'll always be there one step ahead of her, and the 2 make amends. They are then interrupted by the arrival of Nerva, however Melida senses it is not her. She goes on to reveal herself to be Black Media and attacks the 2 sisters, but she's eventually stopped by the arrival of Kufa and Rosie, and she is promptly defeated. Kufa then gives her a report regarding Melida to hand over to Father so that her mission will not be considered a failure. Meanwhile, Dotrich is revealed to have won, with Kara being named queen. Mule speaks to one of the cadets of Dotrich, Salacha, revealing that her absence was due to using a mana analyzer, which collected the mana data of all those who attended the Luna Lumiere, remarking that it may reveal something interesting. Later, Melida asks Elise to form a unit with her, and she happily accepts. That night, Melida and Elise meet up with Mule and Salacha to attend an unofficial closing party of the Luna Lumiere, hosted by Kara and Shenfa. Mule asks the other girls about their love lives, but they decline to have anything of the sort. Unsatisfied, she tells a scary story of a couple who moved to an upper-class district in Flandor, pushed by a lack of employment and the hatred they faced. The husband goes insane and kills his wife, carving out her heart. Ashamed of what he had done, he races out of the house heart in hand, but stops when it starts talking to him, realizing just how much his wife had loved him. He then drowned himself in a river to join his wife in the afterlife. Salacha continues that the dead body of the wife reanimated and became known as the Grey Witch, who is known to rip the hearts out of young women. The story causes Elise to faint in fear while Melida asks if there is any truth to the story, which the two girls cannot confirm. Suddenly, the candles in the room blow out and a wave of darkness falls over the party. While the girls struggle to organize themselves, the Grey Witch suddenly appears and the girls try and flee to safety. The four girls scramble back to their dorm, but on the way back they get covered in a strange slimy substance. They make it near the exit, but the Grey Witch manages to catch up to them. Left with no choice, they try to fight back, but their attacks are easily repelled. They finally make it back to their dorm's courtyard, where they see Kufa with blood coming out of his chest, searching for his heart. Kufa brings them back to his room and explains that the entire event was orchestrated by Rosti, disguised as the Grey Witch, who wanted to give them a fright, and he was also responsible for dropping the slime on them. The girls spend the night in his room, too embarrassed to move. As Kufa and Melida prepare to go on a school trip, Rosti asks Kufa to pretend to be her lover to dissuade her father, called Marquis Blossom, from setting up an arranged marriage, much to Melida's annoyance. When they arrive at the school, they meet with her father, who will serve as their guide to his hometown of Shangarda. He approaches Rosti and tells her that her wedding ceremony will be held at the same time, but she insists she loves someone else, clinging on to Kufa. Blossom examines him closely and he is frightened by him as he is reminded of a murderer from long ago who is supposedly dead. Kufa then excuses himself from the orientation and leaves. Unable to leave Kufa alone, Melida looks for him, where she runs into Black Melida, also known as Laqua, who has since been assigned to be an instructor at their school. Before she can continue her search, they turn their attention to the sound of a scream. They then arrive at the main lobby, where a girl is passed out but has no external injuries. Blossom uses a special potion on a fire pit that traces the source of the mana on the girl, which causes the flame to turn blue, identifying its user as a young male, and so suspicion falls on Kufa, who has no defense. They arrive at Shangarda, which was once a desolate land brought to life using Blossom's magic and technology. He stops Kufa and Melida from approaching a mystery spot, one of many in the city where the laws of nature do not apply. His attention is then called to kill a man who has contracted a disease that causes him to go berserk. After returning from the church visit with Rosti, Melida is upset that he has been ignoring her. He invites her out on a date in an underground area filled with mystery spots, allowing them to float in the air. When she asks him how he found out about this place, he explains that he was here long ago on a mission. That night, Kufa tucks her into bed and she asks him to take her on a date again. Later, Melida wakes up after hearing mysterious voices in her head. Elise barges into her room to inform her that the mysterious blue flame killer has struck again, and Melida is nervous to see that Kufa is nowhere to be found. The students gather at the church and find that all the orphans have been killed, their blood seemingly sucked out of them. All suspicion falls on Kufa once more, but Melida has no clue to his whereabouts. Determined to prove her instructor's innocence, she sneaks away from the tour and she runs into Laqua. She says that Kufa instructed her to look after her if something were to happen to him. She disguises herself as a student and the two investigate the mystery spots. A florist informs them of the crooked house, which piques their interest. When the pair arrive, Laqua finds a hidden trapdoor, and while traversing the tunnels, they find a cage filled with dead people who Laqua identifies as citizens of Shangarda that underwent a failed transformation into a lycanthrope. When they see the same man who was killed the other day, they begin to suspect Blossom is behind this. Suddenly, Melida's head is filled with an image of a man and she realizes she is being warned. She races back to the city, where she finds that another attack has occurred. This time, Rosti is killed while Elise is in a critical state. The townspeople grow angry and they begin a manhunt for Kufa. Meanwhile, Blossom declares he can still revive Rosti. While Melida tends to Elise, Shenfa enters her room and warns her that Blossom was also attacked, and the townspeople have learned of her connection with Kufa. A mob gathers outside their door and Melida is forced to escape. She returns to the first mystery spot they encountered, where a boulder was concealing a secret staircase. Here, she discovers a secret laboratory, where she finds that Blossom was researching something called the Night Gene, experimenting on people to forcibly transform them into lycanthropes. She then hears a voice in her head again, asking her who she is. Rosti then appears, having visibly transformed into a vampiric creature, oozing blue mana. Before she can attack Melida, Kufa appears to save her. In the ensuing struggle, he is forced to transform into his vampire form to hold her back. But Rosti escapes, while a disembodied voice says it is only a matter of time before she falls under her control. Meanwhile, Melida is startled to see the true form of her instructor. Kufa pins down Melida and says he will erase her memories as he is afraid as to what she might think of him. But she reassures him that no matter what happens, she will always be on his side. Satisfied, Kufa explains that 7 years ago in Shangarda, a great lycanthrope threatened to wipe out the town, but it was killed through the efforts of the future White Knight boss. To save the life of his little sister Rosti, he bites her, turning her into a half-vampire. In exchange for her survival, Kufa promises his boss to erase her memories. He fears that the lycanthrope Nakwa has somehow returned. He hatches a plan and asks Melida to trust him. Melida crashes Rosty's wedding and loudly proclaims that she has kissed Kufa twice, snapping Rosty out of her brainwashing, and she angrily draws her weapons to settle the score. Their battle causes a stray firebolt to hit Blossom, revealing a hidden spider that transforms into Nakwa, who Melida points out as the true culprit behind all the attacks. He manages to escape, but Rosty chases after him. She is attacked by Nakwa but gets saved just in time by Kufa. They both transform into their vampiric form while Nakwa transforms into his arachnid state, and they do battle. They impale Nakwa on a rocky spire, but he arrogantly says that he can simply transform into his smaller spider forms and escape. But he is caught by surprise when all the students annihilate each and every one of his forms, killing him for real. Now that Rosty has remembered everything, Kufa is forced to erase her memories once more as per the terms of him and his guild. Rosty tearfully begs him not to, but Kufa says in this way she can live her life normally. Kufa finds Blossom in a cave where his wife is in a half-lycanthrope state. It is revealed that Blossom, desperate to reverse the process, bargained with Nakwa to heal his wife. He gives him a vial that returns her back to normal. On the train back, Rosty remarks that she has foggy memories while in town. She tells Kufa that she joined the Crest Legion so that when she becomes famous all over, then a certain someone she is looking for would end up finding her instead. Melida and Elise are invited by the headmaster to participate in the Vibria Goat, an end-of-the-year exam in the library labyrinth normally only open to sophomore students, as she believes it will put to rest doubts about their being made cadets during the Luna Lumiere. Meanwhile, at a council meeting with nobles, Serge, a famed hero and Salcha's older brother, reveals that Melida carries blood not of the Angel House. The next day, a man claiming to be Melida's father appears, bringing her status as a true noble under the spotlight, concerning Kufa. During the day of the exam, Kufa wishes her and Elise good luck, as they and other examinees descend into the library labyrinth. However, strange tentacles emerge from the walls, crushing their elevator and sending the group tumbling down. Meanwhile, Melida's father announces that he will be withdrawing Melida from the academy due to the recent incident. Kufa protests, saying that Melida still has potential to grow, but Felgus has none of it. One of the school attendants calls their attention to a letter left behind by Grimface, and they realize that Melida and Elise are in danger. The two sisters manage to defeat several ghosts, with Melida confident in Kufa's teachings. However, they are eventually surrounded, but are saved when Salacha and Mule arrive to their rescue. Kufa volunteers to investigate the labyrinth, while leaving behind Rosty to take care of the academy. Meanwhile, Mule and Sechala partner up with Elise and Melida to clear the exam. They reach the trial, where they must organize piles of books into their proper place, while dealing with book imps that periodically spawn from the pile. While Melida deals with the imps, the rest of the girls work under Mule's guidance to return the books one by one. For the last book, Sechala boosts Medilla into the air so she can place it into the final slot. They clear the exam and receive their proofs of accomplishment, but Sechala can no longer keep it a secret, and she warns Melida that the exam is a trap. Meanwhile, the headmaster and several students are attacked by Grimface's zombies. The headmaster desperately tries to fend them off, but she is overwhelmed and stabbed from behind. Before she is hacked to death even further, Kufa appears, slaying the zombies and the necromancer controlling them. As the headmaster dies, she entrusts the safety of the students to Kufa. Suddenly, the necromancer revives as an even larger Lich King, and he begins summoning ghosts to attack them. Mule takes Melida's book from Salacha, where it is revealed that her class is a samurai, information that she must relay back to Serge. She escapes, but Salacha gives Melida and Elise a ride to pursue her. Kufa brings the students to the exit, but he is stopped by the necromancer, who continuously summons waves of ghosts. He cannot hope to stop them all without revealing his vampire form. But Jin arrives, using his bandages to kill the ghosts and the necromancer. Father arrives as well and accepts Jin's service in exchange for providing him with a serum that turns half-lycanthropes back to normal. He then informs Kufa of two pieces of information: that the academy is under attack, and that Mordru and Serge Shixel are likely involved. He entrusts him with finding the missing girls. Meanwhile, Melida asks Mule why she is doing these things when she thought they were friends. Mule smiles and says that it is because she likes her, and she activates several spell books, and a bright light envelops them both. Melida awakens in an Alice in Wonderland-style world, where she is put on trial regarding the truth of her heritage. Serge and the various nobles in attendance cast doubt on her due to the late blooming of her mana, and her samurai class, unbefitting someone from the Angel House. Tired of hearing their insults, she angrily defends herself, saying that she will prove her strength to them firsthand. Serge sends Salash to test Melida's mettle, and although Melida initially struggles with the long-ranged, high-flying Dragoon class, she is able to lure her in and defeat her, silencing her critics. Afterwards, Melida makes amends with Salas and Mule. As the nobles begin having second thoughts, Serge resorts to activating a magic ink pen, which summons an ink dragon that devours the remaining nobles. Melida and the rest of the girls evacuate the surviving nobles, then turn their attention to a masked man. Though initially outmatched, Kufa arrives to turn the tide. Together with Melida, the two work in perfect sync to defeat him. The two embrace, while Mule accidentally disposes of the book revealing Melida's real class. In the real world, the masked man is killed by Serge for his failure, while he laments that there is still much work to be done. A few days later, the blame for the attack was pinned on a rogue Crest Legion member, prompting its commander Felgus to investigate it closely. Meanwhile, he has come to accept Melida as his daughter, remarking that it was a great-grandmother on her mother's side that happened to have the samurai class. In an epilogue, Melida invites Kufa out to the garden where he first saved her life. As a reward for her clearing the labyrinth, she asks him to one day have the world acknowledge her, and in exchange, she will risk her life for her. Kufa is taken aback, which reaffirms his dedication to her even more. As she calls him to go to school, he remarks that she is his one and only pride as an assassin. And this brings the anime to an end. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on another video. Until next time, take care.